Hey everyone, we are here in, I should keep track of this, week 5? We're in week 5, right? For this.
Mhm.
Cool. Week 5 of this client build that we are just talking about publicly. And so if you haven't seen the first 4, feel free. It's on YouTube. Go back, check it out. But we've got this Craft CMS build they're doing for a marketing site. And we're just kind of showing our progress of how we're building this thing out. As we shared last week, Michael had a week off of this project to work on some other stuff. But we also had we still continue to work on it. So we had another developer working on stuff. Michael, what's the update? And y'all worked with a client yesterday. So what's the news on the build for this week?
Well, this live movie so far, primarily we're focused on setting up this connection with the third-party service that they use, the Open Asset service, where they have all the project data in for the architectural information. And the primary work that we were doing is connecting to that API to see how we're going to import that data. Also, it was a bit of a discovery to see what sort of data we can get from that system and how that kind of maps up with the design and the content model that was made for the site itself. So how do we get this data in there? Is it something that we want to bring in automatically, have it update automatically, because this is just something that updates, and they don't want to have to do that again. And then what's going to be pretty much the craft content section of it, which is going to be just managed by craft, which is be the design stuff. So yeah, that's where we're at there. We've kind of set up a basic custom module in Craft just to create an endpoint that we're probably just going to hit with something like FeedMe to run the import on that endpoint. And then the other side of that is we set up a SFSArch instance, and it's going to be syncing that data from Craft after it comes in from the API onto SFSArch to make things easier for filtering, searching, and a lot more performant than that.
Sweet. Okay. So we've got data coming in soon, kind of connected to that, and then the data going out through SFSArch. I guess the other news is we created a plugin for it. Who knows? By the time if you're watching this, it might be out, but it's not out on the plugin store yet. But internally, we're using it, I think, on 2 projects now. The SFSArch plugin. That's why we decided to create it. So we are making the switch from Algolia to SFSArch essentially. So it doesn't cost so much for clients. We're all about the custom hosted open source kind of platforms. Tired of as much SaaS, as many SaaS subscriptions we can reduce and costs on that stuff than we can, because hosting is just not as hard as it used to be. I'm not sure that it ever really was that hard, but it's not as hard as SaaS companies, I think, make it sound like. So when there's an open source platform solution that works, I mean, it just makes sense. But I mean, I guess that's where Craft falls in too, right? There's so many other ones, but cool. Let's do this then, since there's not really a lot with the build itself. In the Craft Discord, where we're sharing this in a show and tell channel, we've got some really great kind of comments back from some developers we know, and they're asking really this important question. I think it's asked in the Craft community quite a bit, and that's essentially, so what we showed last week was essentially this page builder that we have, right? And it allows a certain level of design and layout decisions that are being made during content entry. So like content entry is being made, and if they choose the custom row layout kind of direction, then they have to design it. If they don't design it, then chances are it may not look as good as they want. So they by default it looks okay, but if they don't change anything, but if they want it to look certain ways, they have to like pick their columns. They have to make those decisions. Do I want 2 columns or 3 columns? They can't just enter in content and it fits a fixed template. Anyways, so in the Craft community, there's been a debate, and I think each developer kind of chooses their own path of how much to lock in the content team of their clients once they hand over a site to fix templates versus how much to give them just the ability to create any page they want with a single type of template that is flexible, right? And that's for us what we call like our page builders in that direction. We've kind of gone we've gone through different ones, right? Or different iterations. But I thought it'd be fun to bring up like this idea, at least like in the craft space, first got introduced at least openly to everyone through Travis Gertz's .all talk in 2017, where I think it was editorial design and craft. So if you haven't watched that, if you weren't there in 2017, you weren't in the craft space, you go back and watch that video, because Travis Gertz at that time, he was getting annoyed with websites that didn't have like bold designs and everything was starting to look the same. And so he wanted to like have something where his website was they had the ability to design things in craft. And so and I think in a lot of ways what he was doing was is where a lot of things have gone, in different solutions. So if you haven't watched that, editorial design in craft by Travis Gertz 2017.all, you should definitely go back and watch that, because I think it sets the stage of the extreme side. He presents when you give somebody full design control within craft, of the layouts, and it's fun to watch. He does a good job on that talk. But where do we fit? So like, right, the comments that we got is that maybe this is too far. Like what we're building right now for our client is giving them too much design control. And for watching out for clients that maybe it's stressful for them, maybe that would be blocking for them of like, oh, I just want to enter content, but now I've got to design this, and then they might mess it up, trying to adhere to brand values and like the visual brand look and stuff. Like, yeah. So right between, and I like Travis Gertz has a slide of like, is your client a design master or a design disaster? You're right. And so you've got to toggle. You want to give them a solution where it fits where they are. Yeah. Where do you see that we fit, Michael? Because I'm not sure we've had like the specific conversation. So this is kind of fun for us to dive in. So I wonder how we think about it differently too. But yeah, how do you see it?
We've done the gamut, really. I mean, we've had like really locked down sort of designs, and even with like a content builder, there is no variation on what can be done. It's just basically, okay, these are the blocks, and that's it. This is the design. And then we've gone also the other extreme, all the way with the other client we have. But it made sense in that context because they are a marketing and a design firm, so they have designers there that are on staff that are going in and setting up all these layouts and stuff like that. So we sort of gave them the tools for that. So yeah, we've gone from here to here. And there's different things to think about, because if you wanted to have sort of like a set system where it's kind of closed and there isn't any, or there isn't much design system, you could be ending up with creating like the one we were showing, the current project that we're working on now. We have some like set rows, but there is no variation on those things. You just go in and put in the content and it shows up, bang, that's it. If you do that too much, then you get another sort of decision paralysis, because you could have like 40, depending on the design, or 50 blocks of sort of layouts, that you're coming in. And we've actually had to insert in the content administration system in Craft, like a twig field that we put in there that shows them thumbnails of all of the different set blocks that they have, because they needed that because they had too many,
Yeah.
So that's the other end of when you're restricting, and a lot of people don't think about is like, okay, yeah, they just want to put in something with 2 columns and text, and they have to look I have to look for the 2 column and text component in here and that. So that's another thing to kind of think about as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I kind of forgot about that. It's like when we have all these preset kind of rows and designs, and I remember that. It's like, so how do we don't know which one. They have new people come in, and the Craft UI is not like drag and drop kind of, even email builders and stuff. Like we use Klaviyo, and a lot of people use Klaviyo. I think MailChimp even has stuff like this, but like, it's just drag and drop design. Like, oh, you want column, you just drag some component in. WordPress has that, like Elementor, like, whatever the opinions. I've seen Elementor and I have opinions about it, but it gives that full ability. And there's like these drag and drops. So we've had clients even say like, can we do drag and drop features? I'm like, it doesn't exist, in there, but they're essentially asking for that visual design. So which is and that kind of being able to lay out and column kind of view in there. So, all right. So we've got the two ends, full Travis Kurtz style design control, layout control. You can set your rows, you can set your columns, you can have little pieces of content off on the side as like a little sidebar call out, or anyways, all that stuff, changing font sizes, background colors, all of the whole thing, to fixed rows, fixed sections, however you do it. But then you run the issue of having too many, where then it becomes overwhelming for them to pick like which one. And right. So as you're saying, and what we're doing in this build is we're kind of giving them a mix of both. We're limiting the number of preset kind of rows, but then we give them the option to go fully custom. So if they want to go custom, it's there, but they're not stuck to only using custom. So it's not like either or. There's some preset ones. So if they don't want to think, they're like, this fits, here we go. And then they've got the custom option, which I think is it seems like the right solution. I think it's where we did it with the previous build, like where it was a previous build that we didn't have, but we added on to it. And we kind of did something similar to this with them. But I like it. I think it's kind of pretty elegant that it gives the either direction, right?
Yeah, it's the happy medium, I think, where we're trying to reach. And like the project that we're working on now, there is that, because I hate using this word, but it depends sort of thing. So the client that we are working now is an architectural firm. So design is kind of in the forefront. So we're not too worried about them going crazy, but we're still in these custom rows we have in there. We're still putting guardrails in there. You know, there are limited options that they can select for font sizes, and they can't go crazy like in like changing the font colors and stuff like that. You know, and another thing which I find interesting as well is with the inclusion of field conditionals and using entry types on matrix blocks. So that kind of extends the functionality of field conditionals on a matrix block. And you think about that, well, there's field conditionals for users, right? So you can make a certain field, like say it's a color field for a background color, or it's a font choice or something like that. You could lock those off to like maybe a user group that is just an editorial group. They go in and put it in the content. Of course, this all depends on the structure of the clients and their company, and then have that be available for the other user group, a user in a user group that's more of the design oriented users that come in, like say they have an in-house designer, and they're the only ones that can make those decisions regarding things that can be very garish, like color and fonts and stuff like that. Those are so getting the right people to make those decisions, and leaving the content editors to enter content. So we could provide like a sort of a base thing. It looks good, it's fine. It doesn't. It works, and that's like the base of it. And so then the designer can come in, and since they have the options to make those decisions, they can change it that way.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely a way, is like let the content people just enter their content without thinking about design, give them enough of a structure so that it looks decent. It just be a basic page kind of, right? But if they then want to give it some editorial flair to make Travis Kurtz happy, then that's something you could definitely set up. That's not what we've set up. That's not what we're doing, but like those are the options. If that was something that would be, that'd be interesting. I think the thing that I come with too is, and I remember we had this conversation internally. I think I had it with Matt, our account manager on this project, was the essence of like these custom builders and I said, I was like, well, we want to provide them something similar to Squarespace or Wix or Webflow, because that is the standard. As I mentioned, even in email builders, I mean, in email builders, you can do layout stuff. So it feels weird for clients to come into a CMS that is supposed to be awesome and be able to do less than you can on these other SaaS platforms that are, inexpensive. So Webflow, you can design right in there. And the thing is that people use those and people like them, and they continue to use them because they give the flexibility, and it takes the developer out of it, right? And so clients, if they can take a developer out of it, then if there's a solution that will give them that, save money, they'll take it. So I mean, we are the optional side sometimes. It's like, if we can remove the developer, everybody's trying to kick us out, over there. And what's funny is, for us here at Cloud Scrummers, like, we're trying to do the same thing. Like, we don't want to be engaged in the need for content, like for the content team to like
Mm.
publish stuff. Like, we are not engaged in that with our clients. That we give them the tool, they can do it, and they're in Craft for other reasons, that you can't connect for this or that, or they need other abilities, or full accessibility, they want that to work. Like, there's other reasons that Craft is a very important decision for marketing sites. But sometimes you don't need Craft. You can just go to Webflow. You can just go to some other thing, and in those solutions, clients are happy to just design their content as they go. Um,
Mm.
and if they want to be more locked in, then they can create a template once, kind of copy it, create that page, and kind of go from there. They figure it out, right? So I'm not
Mm.
worried, I guess, from my side. Like, I don't have that fear that clients aren't smart enough to figure out how to design it. I think maybe in workflows, it's like, well, this is cumbersome. Like, I think it's more of that. Like, can they figure it out? Can they do it? Because they can always duplicate entries. So I don't have the fear in Craft of giving the clients too much flexibility. I actually have the opposite fear. I have the fear of giving them not enough.
Mm.
Because what we get when we take on sites that we didn't build, it's often because, like, hey, we've wanted to do this thing, but we've not been able to, like,
Mm.
we've wanted to use this design element and we can't. Why can't we add a video to this page? Like, and so for us in our builds, that's just default. Like, no, you should be able to do these things. Like, this is basic CMS stuff now. Like, that's where we are, like, you
Mm.
have to provide some of that basic. So my fear is more is limiting clients rather than giving them too much, because in the too much, the decisions, again, you can just create a default template. I mean, goodness, I was thinking about this actually, maybe like if we had a plugin or something that had default page templates, it's like, go in,
Mm.
create it, it gives you your layout, you got to enter your content, and stuff. But like, I want a full page that looks like this, and it's essentially a page builder that's been pre-built, type of a thing. But anyways, um I think there are solutions to that, right? Of having somebody not have to overly design, but without making it to where then they can't do anything. But what if they do want to? Now I want 2 columns. I'm sorry I didn't want it yesterday, but now I do. Like, well, it's going to
Mm.
cost this much money, and now you got to wait, so we can develop it. And I think it's frustrating for clients. It's like,
Mm.
CMS, shouldn't I be able to do this? I think they expect a level of design and layout control, at least from our experience, of some of the clients that we've gotten, because of the requests they have of like, we want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and we're not able to in our current build. And so we have an approach that we want to give them more flexibility, right? So it's why we use entry types and not singles. Like, we use a pages structure with different entry types, and we're not in the singles. For me, and my understanding of Craft and like what we're trying to do and like solve for clients, it's the same. We're solving the same problem of why we don't use singles as to why we have a page builder type of a thing.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's as you say, you don't want to limit them with what they can do. You do want to provide them with of course, the right tools to kind of build out what they can. You have to think very generically of how the data is going to be modeled and stuff like that, and how it can be reused, especially different components. The thing is to build it once, and we can reuse this over here and over here and over here. So if they do want some sort of a new feature, it's not a big thing to build. But yeah, you want to give them the tools to do it, but you also want to give them those guardrails a little bit too, so to make it feasible for them to go in and build stuff out.
Yeah. So maybe that's where the decision making comes in, because each of our
Mm.
even page builders is a little bit different in the sense of like where the guardrails are. So, and that's the cool thing about Craft, is then you can optionally add the guardrails, especially if you have that system, at least in our system, the way we have it with rows and columns, is then we can easily continue to add settings, layout settings and stuff to rows. So if they want a background video, they want a background image, they want a background, something else going on, they want gradient image, colors, all of a sudden, like, it's not hard to then add those pieces, and it's not like restructuring the whole thing. So like the way we have with rows and columns gives us that foundational layout to then add more abilities if we want, and I like that.
Yeah, and it's advantage, like you're saying, for Craft in this case also is that you're discussing like some of the more like WYSIWYG sort of page builders like Webflow and stuff like that, which is, that has its market and sort of thing, and they can go in and drag things around and stuff like that. But it's thinking about it in one sort of state of the page in itself. So, and it's probably going to be a desktop state size, everything like that. And I don't know how these systems work. If like in Webflow, it has something behind that says, okay, well, what happens with this beautiful layout that you've done when it goes down to a mobile size? The advantage of Craft is that, and doing the development yourself, and Craft doesn't bring any sort of front end to it. You have to build it out. Is then the developer is thinking about that. I should be thinking about that. Is okay if they put in 3 columns and this content goes here, here, and here. Then yeah, you have to think about how's it going to be on a tablet size and a small size, and you can think that out. It's not a machine thinking it out that might get it wrong or not. Understand how things need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to carry on with this hybrid solution of where our page builders have preset kind of templated rows. So there's not any design decisions, or maybe few, of like, hey, I want this image to be there versus here type of thing. Some modifications to those rows, but it's basically into your content and then play with the settings, see how it looks, different views. And then we're going to continue with these row and column builds, where then we can manage the settings for rows, settings for columns, even settings for the content pieces within columns separately to the need of the client, where we have some base things, right? We have some padding, we have alignment, we've got different things in there. But again, we're not putting these full designed rows within the custom. Like we're not like trying to squeeze them in. We're just giving little components that are in there, to the level to where it's like, a marketing team would like, yeah, I want to build out this new landing page. Can they build out their landing page in a way so that it has its own look? Or if there's an article that's like, hey, this article's this is an important article and we really want it to look good. This one needs to stand out, and it's got editorial elements to it. So like magazines, right, have different looks for articles. I mean, they make them look different. And so for clients that have some needs like that, then at least it's closer to allowing that, which I like. So again, I'm all about letting the marketing teams, content teams feel the flexibility and have the flexibility. Let them push I think they're all smart enough people, let them push it to like find where it is. I trust them in that sense. And just like they have to make decisions even on templated pages of putting the right words in. Like we don't control the words they put in, it's their thing. They put the words in. So in this sense, I think we can, they can trust them to figure out, how to map that stuff out. And it's worked so far. I think if we're fully honest, our site is the guinea pig site. Our site is the one where, every page is like a little bit different. It's a little too wild. We tried some things like, okay, so we're eager to kind of redo ours. I think our content entry and authoring experience on our Craft site is probably the worst. But we wanted to try things out internally, and we realized, nope, that's not going to work. So we're ready to get rid of it, but we're stuck with what we have for now because we're doing client work. So but yeah, cool. Well, that's our thoughts. I'll share this. If anybody else has continuing thoughts, absolutely hit us up. Anything else you want to talk about? So, Michael, you're back on the project this week, right?
Yep, they're starting back up on the project, and I'm going to be diving into a couple of little changes that the client want. Another advantage of having the client within the staging site putting in real content is, I come across a couple of things. Can we do this? Can we do that? So getting a couple of those things done for them, and jumping straight into the sort of project system that we discussed at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. I saw one of the things actually, so I want to talk about really quick, and this is the benefit of like Craft, like over some other systems and stuff too. Even though you can do things, but like I saw, so one of the components that we have, like the row preset things, is like a project's preview, a project's highlight or something, right? They relate it to, there's projects that are in Craft on a page, they can pull those in, and it shows in a certain way with like project information and text, and then like 2 images, right? And one's a vertical portrait kind of style, one's a landscape image. And I saw like, they were like, wait, can we pull these in? So those images are getting automatically pulled in from the project, for like the project has a set of images. and the first two images are the ones that are being pulled into that, which
Mhm.
you also have created to where they can override those. So in the actual component itself on that page, if they use that component, they can override those individually on that page. But by default, it just pulls in those first two images. And I saw the request was, can we switch where image 1 and image 2 go in these layouts? Because image 1 is always outdoor, as an external outdoors image, and it looks
Yeah, so it's the
better.
landscape.
Yeah, it looks better in,
Mhm.
I forget which one is which, right? But yeah, it looks better in this other one. They want to flip them, and then the internal image is the other one. And so
Mhm.
that's something where we can make a code change like that, or give a setting. That's where sometimes, do you make a decision of like, which
Yeah.
way do you want it? Is that a control that you give them, or is
Mhm.
that just a default hard coded thing you're going to do? Because what if they change their mind later, right? Do these things. So how are you going to approach that? Do you know? Are you going to give them a control of like switch images, or you're just going to set it?
Yeah, my first instinct is to give them a control to swap the images because, like you said, it could be a year down the road, a year and a half down the road, and they say, or someone is inputting content and they don't know that they have to put that the first image has to be a landscape one. You don't know, So I think I'm more than likely we given them the option to override those images as well because that can happen. They might want to use that image, but they might want to crop it a little bit different or something like that. So I'm leaning towards giving them the option to with a field to be able to swap those.
Yeah, I was wondering how you're going to do that. Yeah, because that might be where a lot of people just hard code it, switch it. Okay, now it's there. But that is our approach. The year down road,
Mhm.
we want them to be able to switch it without having to come to us and like, we have to all remember, why did we do that?
Mhm.
And go down,
Exactly. Yeah.
let's just give it to them. Because somebody might change their mind. Cool. So there's
Mhm.
a unique custom thing that you wouldn't be able to get in another system, like a unique logic that is already custom business logic for their marketing needs that makes their job easier with their specific content and the way they want to present it, and how they
Mhm.
organize it. Like who else organizes the external images first and the other one is, and the internal one is second. Like it's custom to them, and how they approach things and how they organize things. And we can build, the system around them, versus making their company have to change how they organize things just to fit a CMS. So
Mhm.
that's what I
Yep.
love. And that's why we
Yep.
continue to use Craft.
Yep.
All right, Craft, send us some money for that one. All right, thanks.
Mhm.
Hey, Michael, thanks again. We'll see you next week.